Welcome to the Clear to Send podcast, a podcast about wireless engineering, where we educate you on Wi-Fi technology, talk about design tips, troubleshooting, interviews, and the tools. Here are your hosts, Roel and Francois.
Hi guys, welcome to the brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. This is Francois. I'm here today with Roel. Hey Roel, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. And this episode, I guess, is a little special for us, right? Because we've been working on something we're really excited to for a few I want to say months now, a few weeks at least. And today is the day we're actually releasing it. And so we're super excited to announce that we are releasing our new, our very first, I guess, course. And we're calling it a practical guide to Wi-Fi site surveys. Yeah. So what we wanted to do is create like a thorough practical guide to help you guys prepare and perform a professional Wi-Fi site survey. And so I guess this is, what we'll be talking about today. Roel and I will be sharing some of the experiences, some of our, I guess, site survey experience, and talking about, how we try to pack all of that experience into this course in order to help you guys or help the students, into the site survey journey.
Yeah, I think it was very much a big effort on your end, Francois, on mine, getting stuff set up. And if you guys want to check this out, it's at courses.cleartosend.net. You'll see the one course that we have there. There will be more to come in the future, but it's our first one. So go ahead and check it out. Let us know what you guys think. There's a full description of what that course is, but this is a course I think would have been really helpful for me when I first got started because I didn't know what exactly to do. I didn't have all the equipment I needed when I went on site to do a site survey. And so we'll talk about some of our experiences on previous site surveys and maybe even some of our most recent ones. But we did pack a lot of our own experience into this course, things that we know would make things more efficient for you guys and also make you look professional as well.
Exactly. And if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, we also have a video version. And I just remember I forgot to look at the camera when I was talking. We're still getting used to that video thing. But so you can head over to YouTube as well if you want to see the video. And we'll try to share a couple of maybe we'll share our screen and show you guys the actual details of which modules you can have in the course. So if you're watching the video version of the podcast, you'll be able to see all of this. If you're just listening on the podcast, you can head over to courses.cleartosend.net, like Roel was mentioning. And we'll provide a little bit more background information on the course, maybe talk about the behind the scene at the end of the episode. What we want you to focus on right now is just talk about our experiences. And Roel, I think it's a really good idea to come back to the very first site survey we've done. I think it's a good way to start. For me, I got super lucky because I was actually, for the very first site survey I did, I was actually tagging along a more experienced engineer. So he was kind of guiding me through the process and telling me how everything works. So he introduced me to a lot of things you need to do on site that I still keep with me today, especially safety. All right. He was talking about a lot about safety. You need to make sure your equipment is not, distracting for the staff. You need to make sure it's not going to fall on someone. And I guess that was one thing that I kept with me all along. And then as you do your own work, you try to see how you could actually improve how you do things. And from that very first site survey I did with him, obviously I've evolved. I did a new type of things, and then site survey is not just working on site, right? It's there's a lot more things involved in doing a site survey if you want to do it properly. So I guess we try to cover all of this in the course as well.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of the stuff we'll mention, we did put out into the course itself, and And I was the same way. When I first started, I didn't do things the right way, right? I had to figure it out on my own. So I didn't have what you had. So I wasn't lucky enough to tag along with somebody. It was mostly maybe what I saw online from what other people were doing. And I think one of the first things I remember seeing was doing an AP on a stick using a painter's pole, which right away I never liked the idea. And now I'm not saying it's not a good idea, but when I was doing work for other people, I didn't want to come on site with a painter's pole and try to put an AP kind of, haphazardly on there.
With duct tape and
with duct
tie
tape,
wrap.
yeah. And
I did that for a long time. So
yeah, I mean, you got to do what you got to do, right? And I just didn't think, for me, that wasn't something I wanted to do, because I saw it as a like a perceived value thing. Like someone is looking at me going, I'm paying someone to do this, and this is what he brings is a painter's pole and duct tape. And he's kind of putting it all together. So being that I've had a photography background, I knew I could use like tripods or speaker poles. And so I went that route, but then it was difficult to figure out how to mount an access point on there, right? So you had to figure out the threading, what kind of threading you needed in order to attach a mount for the AP. And luckily we have tools like Wi-Fi stand, right? Like those, like that was a game changer for many of us as we try to mount things securely and professionally. So once I saw that, I hopped on that, and I have two of them still. I still use the same original ones that they first came out with, and thought they've been useful. But at least when I come on site, then it looks now a little bit more professional, right? And you, as you do these site surveys, you start learning how you can become more efficient when you do it, right? And I learned, like, all right, I have this tripod, I got to move it around, but man, is it a pain to just like condense the tripod, bring the legs together, carry it, move it. How do you power this AP up? You learn all these things sometimes when you go on site.
Yeah, and also as you work in different environments, you can learn different things, right? So, doing a site survey in an office environment would be different than doing a site survey in a retail space or in a warehouse or outdoors. So you kind of try to see, the difference in the type of equipment you will need, and, the type of pole, right? The type of heights and all of this. So you kind of learn as you go all of the things you need to do your work. And I don't know what you think, Rob, but I think the end goal of doing a site survey is to collect valuable data on the Wi-Fi network, right? So if you go on site, you walk around, you collect data, you go home, and you cannot do anything with the data, that's useless, right?
You just wasted a lot of time.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess the goal is to go on site and be very efficient in how you do your work in order to collect valuable and accurate information. So I guess that's what we try to keep in mind when we created this practical guide. Try to provide all the information to actually get ready, prepare yourself. What can you do before going on site? So when you arrive on site, you're actually very efficient, and the data you collect is actually data you can use in your reporting, you can use to analyze the status of the Wi-Fi network and so on. So, and I always try to keep that in mind as well. And when you do a lot of site survey, it's easy to just get carried away and be like, oh, I know what I'm doing, right? It's like anything in life, right?
Yeah, and then as you're going through it, in the end, sometimes, and this has happened to me several times, where you get in the car or the plane and you go, wait, I forgot to collect a piece of information that I wanted to collect when I was there. And it happens to all of us, but we do go over this in the course, because one of the things that is important to both of us is the preparation part, right? We try to be as prepared as we can before we go on site. And I do that still today. And one of those things that we do in the course, and because I have such bad memory, Francois, like this checklist that we provide in the course, like as a little bonus, like I go through that whenever I'm packing my stuff, or, even if I'm not doing an AP on a stick, I look at it and I go, do I have my sidekick? And this happened to me the other day, Francois. I was like, all right, I have my sidekick. And this is a day before I go out. I'm like, all right, I need to charge my sidekick. where's my power cable? Where did the charger go? And I could not find my Sidekick charger cable, and so I actually had to order a new one. So I'm like, all right, I don't have it. Yeah, I couldn't find it. I'm like, where is this thing? Like, I don't know if I left it at a client site or I just left it somewhere. So I had to order another one just so the power of my Sidekick doesn't run out before my next site survey, which is not for a while. But still, like the checklist, when I went through the checklist, I wouldn't have found that, right? I would have maybe the night before before leaving, I probably would have been packing my stuff and then freaking out going, well, now my Sidekick's not charged. I hope I have enough juice to do this thing. And then I go on Amazon or something trying to find the right charger. So I'm asking, I asked, who did I ask? Oh, I asked my coworker. I was like, hey, can you shoot me the back of the power brick so I can see if I can find this on Amazon? And I was like, forget it. I'll just get it straight from Ekahau. I don't want to. What I didn't want to do was put in the wrong charger and then break the Sidekick itself.
Yeah. So what I do for chargers now is I put some tape on it, and then with a big pen, black pen, I would write like.
Oh yeah, I do that too. That's probably something we didn't even add in the course. I don't know if you mentioned that in some of your modules, Francois, but yeah, I have a label maker, and every charger that I get, I print out what it's for, because they all look the same. You just never know what they plug into. So I have one that says Ekahau Sidekick, and I cannot find it anywhere.
You should add your name and phone number so if someone finds it.
The next step, right? That's the next efficiency steps on the how to make it better.
Anyway, so you want to talk about the last site survey you did?
Yeah. So the last site survey I did was pretty basic, right? I had to go to San Francisco, and during this time, we all know it's like COVID-19. So there are some places that were starting to open back up. The one thing that was different with this site is, so they hired me to do the design, configuration, and validation. They did the design for me. I was starting to work on the design. I'm like, here's where the APs are going to go. And they started saying, oh, but we already have them installed. I'm like, well, that would be good information to know. And so I'm like, all right, well, let me configure them, and based on where they're at, I'll validate it. So I didn't have to do the AP on a stick, but one of them, like safety, is going to be part of everybody's work right now, right? So before you go on site, I had to have a mask, right? A face covering. So that's something that's going to be always on the checklist for a long time. And you got to have a couple of those. So I would recommend everyone just buy a box from wherever you buy your PPE, your personal protective equipment. Buy a box of face coverings or cloth face coverings, just so you could reuse them. Just so if you lose one, like I have one in both of my cars, I just stick some in there, and that way if I forget to pack it, it's in the car. The other thing is like gloves. I guess it's up to you if you want to wear gloves. I brought my own, but sometimes my hands get like really sweaty under those gloves. I know it gets uncomfortable. And then sometimes when you're touching the iPad, it doesn't recognize your fingers. So in lieu of that, I brought hand sanitizer, right? So I bring hand sanitizer with me. Like those are now like I have to have these type of equipment on site. So I bring that on site. I had my Sidekick, went through the checklist. I'm like, okay, my only checklist here is a Sidekick and the laser distance finder. And the laser distance finder, I will tell you, I always forget the laser distance finder, and I have two of them. And so I'll arrive on site. I'm like, where is my distance finder? It's usually in my bag. And then I go, oh, I've removed it from my bag. I should have went through the checklist the night before and added it to my bag. So I always go through that. But I brought it this time because I had to confirm the distances. So like that's part of like my on-site is I have the floor plan. I was given the distance, but I need to confirm it, right? You can trust, but verify that the distance is correct. And then part of my on-site tasks is you do the validation survey, you walk around, collect the data. But now part of my process is ensuring I take photos of the access point where they're installed, any markings on them. So I will take a picture, do an AP note. And a lot of times I use the microphone that's on the iPad, so I don't have to type it out every single time. So if it says IDF 2.2, I will hit the comment and say it with the microphone, as long as there's not a lot of people there. I don't want to be walking around disturbing everyone going IDF 2.2. So I'll try to be efficient that way. So what I do is I do the validation survey first, and then I make a second run, taking a photo of each access point, doing the checks like, all right, coverage is good in the area where I was concerned about since they pre-installed these APs. And then
Did they have enough AP?
Oh, they had way more APs than they needed. I think they might have been confused when I said you don't need this many.
Yeah.
Are you still in your return period with your vendor? You could return at least 2 or 3 of these APs. But I mentioned that in the report, right? So that's part of the process too, is going home. When I drive back home, I start thinking about, all right, what do I need to do? Actually, let me back up. One of the things that you should always do, this is like, and I always forget this again, it's part of the checklist that you do, is that the day before, maybe a couple days before, ensure you have access to the site, right? So I show up, it's San Francisco. Everyone's got like the door guy. I show up to the lobby and I go, yeah, I'm here to go to this company on the 6th floor. They're like, who are you? I'm like, yeah, my name's Roel. I should be on the, packet 6. I'm here on the list. They're like, I don't see you on here. Who are you here to see? I'm like, yeah, here's my contact guy. Like that I know for sure, right? But it's good to have your contact like maybe on a document so you don't have to search for it on your emails. Like, all right, let me look at his email. Let me look for his signature that has his phone number. Like what I do now is for every project I do, there's a site contact document. So I have the name of who I'm going to reach, the phone number, the email. So that way you just pull it up and I can quickly contact the guy when I can't get in. Right. So that's what I did. And what's funny is they go, yeah, I don't see that guy on this. I don't see him in this building. I'm like, what the heck?
So did you have to call your contact?
I did. I was like, hey, can you come down and get me? And he's like, oh, I'm not there yet. I'll come get you. And I go,
okay.
I'm like, all right, so let me wait. But always make sure you have access, right? Like the fact that if he had called it in earlier, maybe even the day of before I arrived on site, it would have been easy for me. They would have allowed me to just go up to the suite. I maybe could have started early. And I say I could have started early, and I know there wasn't any people on site, so I could have just started the validation survey. And so there's that piece. That's important, because I think if I had arrived maybe on time, and let's say, I know some of you guys maybe charged by the hour, like you would have wasted time just waiting for your contact to let you in. And then you run into these issues. But after I did the survey, it's like you go home, you think about what you're going to include in the report. But I have a template report. But what I have is a section to add like recommendations, or I analyze some of the results instead of using the canned text that comes with the report. And I see this a lot with other companies, is they just do the one-click report, but it doesn't add any value, right? It's just a bunch of heat maps with default text. So I add a little bit more to that. I add my analysis and recommendations, what changes they need to make, et cetera. So that's kind of my process. And then I review it with them. And this is a tip, I think, which we don't really, I don't know if we mentioned this in the course, Francois, but it was in our Slack. So this is kind of like a key thing with going in our Slack group, is we talked about reports in the Slack group, but Keith Parsons actually brought up a good point where he said, the report may be like that one point in time document, but what's really helpful is just going through the Ekahau file live with them, right? Showing them what you saw. And I thought that was pretty good, like a really good tip that everyone should include in their review of the validation survey with your clients.
Yeah, sending a report might not be enough. What I like to do is when I send the report, I always like to schedule a debriefing, conference call with the customer. And then when I do these, I always, in the email, I always tell the customers, feel free to review the report before the meeting so we can discuss it. And I can tell you, like 90% of the time, they never read the report. So that shows you how important those debriefing sessions are, because you can actually go through the report with them, and you can actually do what you were talking about. Well, you can go back to Ekahau and say, okay, this is what we got the first round around, and this is how we correct it. This is what we get now, and you can explain. It kind of give a little bit more background information of what you did on site, because they might not be exactly on site at the same time as you. Right? Some of the customers you work with are remote, so you can just go through your thought process of what you did when you were on site, and you can just close the loop on the project. If they have any questions, they can, you're giving them the opportunity to ask questions. And it's as I guess as an engineer, it's nice because you get closure on the project. As a salesperson, it's nice also because you can handle customer service and answer any of their concerns. So I think it brings more value than just sending a PDF file.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're not going to read it. Let's be honest. Most of them won't read it. They won't understand it. So that's why going through the actual file, which will help them understand the report better, is key. All right.
Yeah, exactly. And then we also talk about appendix, right? Yes, so on top of sending the PDF file, we usually send a lot more information alongside the report in the appendix. Right. My appendix sometimes are, I don't want to say gigs of data, because Roa is going to say, what, your report is 1 gig? I'm like, yeah. But yes, it's a lot of data. And the goal is not for the customer to consume all that data. The goal is just for the customer to have the data, just in case someone else comes along and they want to see what I did. At least they have everything.
Yeah, they have the documentation, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think one thing we could share with the appendix is earlier I talked about the photos that I take on the AP notes. And one thing that we do share in the course is what you could do with those photos. I think it's a lot. It goes one step beyond just including them in an Ekahau file or even including them in the report. So that's something to look out for.
And I guess talking about photos, I can talk about one experience I had earlier this year.
Yep.
I got contacted by one guy in Australia. Maybe he's listening to the podcast, so he'll probably recognize himself. But he wanted me to do a quick assessment of a Wi-Fi network in Toronto. But he's in Australia, so he's never going to go on site, right? So he asked me to take some pictures so they can have a sense of what the environment looks like. And it was, one of those downtown office with like open ceiling, old school type of, building that got renovated into I'm sure you have plenty of those in San Francisco. So it was kind of like this thing. So what I did is I actually took a whole bunch of pictures and I placed the pictures on the map so he could go into the Ekahau project files and kind of navigate throughout the space. It wasn't like a Google Street type of experience, but I was aiming for that type of experience, right? So he could actually just go on the map, click on a picture node, and see what I would see from that location when I was on site. And I tried to take different angles, like ceiling pictures, just straight pictures, so he could have an idea of what everything looks like. And I think he appreciated it. So, and I would, what I try to do as well when I do a site survey, I try to place myself in the shoes of the person that will receive the data. What would I like to see?
Right.
And for sure, I would like to see the ceiling types. For sure, I would like to see, what type of, what are we dealing with, especially in these environments where I can tell you they had a garage door inside the building.
Are they driving in the building, Francois?
So they had a conference room, and one end of the conference room was like, those roll-up garage doors.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a very unusual thing to find inside the building.
Right. Maybe where you are, Francois, San Francisco is a different story. You'll be surprised what you see in these buildings here.
Yeah, so that was interesting, and but that's I guess that's a good way that you could use the pictures to enhance the site survey and provide more value to the customer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Why don't you share a story that's a little bit, different from mine? You do a lot of warehouses and other interesting environments.
Yeah.
What's been
Yeah.
your
So I guess
experience like there?
yeah, I guess I can talk about the last one I did, and that's actually a project we worked on together. So we did a design for it was not like a new warehouse, but it was like a new section in the warehouse. And then I was going on site to validate the design, right? So the customer just installed the APs, and I was going on site to validate it. And I can tell you, like some of the stuff you were sharing about COVID, it's kind of like the same here. And I had to bring my mask. They asked me to bring safety glasses. And they obviously, because I was in a warehouse, and also this one was specific because I was going into a construction site. So the section of the house they were renovating was not fully renovated, I guess. So the customer actually hired a contractor to renovate this section of the warehouse, and the contractor has very strict safety rules, and I had to go through a 2-hour safety training before starting the work, right? And we had it was a full-on training. We had quizzes, we had an instructor, and then so they were going through a whole bunch of things. And for me, it was interesting because I've done those trainings before, but the last time I actually learned some new stuff, new regulations about different rules in Canada, because the training was such extensive. So it was a good thing, but that's definitely something you want to plan for when you do your work, especially if you have to catch a plane or something and you're limited into the time you have available on site. Thankfully, I was just I was just driving distance away from my house, so I didn't have to worry too much about that. But that's definitely something you want to keep in mind, and we do talk about that in the course. So at the end of they wanted me to have a very specific vest, because the yellow vest we see. The yellow vest we see are not
they're not the approved
good
version. They're not the ones they wear on like construction guys. Those are not the ones they wear.
Exactly. They're not approved on construction sites. So the one I needed was an orange vest with a cross, like the cross at the back. And thankfully, that's the one I had with me. And the reason why I have the orange vest is because I like orange better than yellow. So I guess that saved me.
So they didn't have that on site? Like they didn't have an extra vest?
I think they would have provided a vest, if I didn't have one.
Okay.
Right. I could have, went to the closest Lowe's or Home Depot and I got one.
I mean, the worst that I don't like is coming on site and then you have to wear somebody else's helmet or goggles. I don't like doing that.
Yeah, because you start to sweat a lot on those stuff, especially right now. So and then it's even more important right now, and the safety instructor was telling us, because they have a lot of inspectors going around warehouses right now to make sure that everyone is following the COVID-19 rules.
Oh, wow.
And part of that they will also check if you have the proper vest, right? And then the instructor told us that in the area we were in, they had a new inspector, and he told us usually new inspectors, they like to show that they have the authority, so they like to
they're going to enforce the rules pretty hard.
Yeah, exactly. They like to enforce the rules pretty hard. But thankfully, I didn't see anyone, and I was able to do my work. It was just annoying with especially the safety glasses and the mask as you breathe. All the you have a whole bunch of I don't know how you say in English, I forgot, but the blurry in front of the glasses.
Oh yeah, how it like fogs up.
The fogs, yeah, exactly. So it fogs up, and you have to clean the glasses, and so that's a little annoying. But I guess it's a good thing to experience, because now you can better understand some other people work and how they work every day. You're like, oh man, I'm lucky to be home at my desk.
Right. Yeah. Because construction guys, they're used to wearing masks, right? they're always in environments where it's a construction environment, so they're going to come across a lot of dust. So they wear these masks, so they're used to that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, so I did my survey. Everything went well. I did just like you. I did take pictures of the AP installations. That's something we like to include in our reports. And you know what? We didn't have any issues related to AP installation, which is very good to see. And I guess one of the reasons why we didn't have any issues is because when we provided documents for the design, we gave a lot of instructions on how to install the APs, and the installers actually respected that.
Yeah.
So when I arrived on site, it's like I saw exactly what I had in my specification document. So that's also something I've learned along the years. If you provide more information to the installers, if you care about the work they do, then they kind of give it back to you.
Yeah.
And it makes your work easier as well.
Yeah.
So,
Don't give them any room to interpret the install. I hope you
No
kept
room
their
for
contact
interpretation.
info. Those are the type of guys you want to keep in contact with, especially
Exactly.
if you need to somehow recommend someone for installation. Like that type of work is something I value, especially if someone will follow the directions and also install it in a professional way where they're not, cutting corners or anything.
Exactly. And at the beginning, when I started to do survey, I wasn't appreciating that work as much. I was like, yeah, they know what to do. That's their job. But one day I was like, okay, let me try to do it myself. And I went to the hardware store and I started to purchase a whole bunch of stuff. And I was like, man, that's not that easy. So the next survey I did after that, I was talking to the installers and I was asking him a whole bunch of questions. He was probably like, what the heck? But I just wanted to understand how they do their work and, you know, why did he do this way? And, why here it's different than there. And then I started to understand a whole bunch of problems they have, with like conduits and, cables runs and knowing that, it makes you a better engineer as well, because now you can better cater for the customer, and then you can take the work of the installer into account when you do your design. You're like, for me, it's easier to place an AP there on the map, but I know that for the installer, it's going to be a pain.
Difficult.
Let me see if I can.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can move it around and make it easy for all of us. And so it was a very good experience for me.
Yeah, I think having a good relationship with installers is a good idea. I mean, a lot of them don't know how Wi-Fi works, so we all run across this. They install it, that makes it easiest for them, right? Which means straight cable paths, right? It's all going to be. That's why we see APs a lot in a straight line, is because it's easy to run the Ethernet just down that hallway. Very easy.
Exactly, and then easy for them might be AP on the wall, AP into a closet, right? So yeah, like you say, it's important for us to give them more info. So, and maybe sure sometimes they ask questions about Wi-Fi, so it's a good opportunity for us to educate.
Yeah, it's a good way to educate them on why you have it mounted the way you need it mounted. But I'm sure you also run into the same types of regulations where they have to install cable a certain way, right? Especially if it's above the grid. There's they use J hooks. They need to make sure it's a special rated cable. Like there's all these different rules they have to follow. I know they do a lot of training as well. So it's a whole different business there. And so to understand what they have to go through will just make you a little bit better of an engineer as you take that into consideration.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely agree with that. And then what I did as well, part of the survey, is because I was validating the new Wi-Fi, so I actually worked with the customer with the different type of devices they were going to use in that space in our warehouse, and we did some application testing. We walked around, make sure that we had proper signal. And what we did as well is we compared, how the device would see the signal compared to how the Sidekick sees the signal, so I could have some offsets that I could apply to my survey data and validate that the device will have good signal everywhere in the space. So we did this. we find out a couple of things we could optimize on how the device were configured. For instance, they were not configured to be using all 5 gigahertz channels. So that's something we changed because we designed using all 5 gigahertz channels. So a couple of things like this you can actually pick up when you do the validation. So when they start to use the device in production, you can avoid having those start issues, and it's a good way to make sure that the application will run properly. And in that space also, what we did, because it was like an addition to an existing network, we made sure that they still had a good transition between the two, and make sure that we didn't introduce any coverage holes or anything like this in between the two. So because we ended up disabling some of the APs that they were previously using in that same area. Mm-hmm. So that was also part of the work. So that's pretty much what we did when I was on site. And then when I came back home, I analyzed the data, and I also prepared a report, and we presented that to the customer. So now they're pretty much ready to start using the network. They're not fully ready in terms of finishing the construction on their end. So so I'm excited to see. I guess the last step for them would be to test the Wi-Fi whenever everything is finished. All right. So we'll see if that
they need an inventory on the shelves, right? To fully
they need to put some
validate that signal.
But we had a little margin, so I think they'll be fine.
I think so.
So that was my experience, my latest experience, and I did use some of the stuff we have in the course, right? So the reason why we call the course the practical guide is because we're providing a lot of practical information of things you can apply to your very next site survey. So if you enroll in the course and follow it, you'll see that a lot of things you can apply right away. And we also, on top of providing informations, we also provide some tools. And I guess that's part of the bonus that we'll provide along with the course. But like, just to give you an idea, we built a list of questions you could ask the customers to prepare the site survey. So part of those questions would be, who will provide access to me, or where do I go to get my access when I go on site? Do you guys need anything? Need me to provide anything for me to get access? Some customers will need your legal name. I've even seen customers that needs to see your ID, or they need your fingerprint in some instance, right? Sometimes they need a background check. So you don't want to do that when you arrive on site, right? You want to make sure everything is done prior. So that's an example of a list of a bonus we provide. But having that list of questions consolidated in one document can save you a lot of time if you're preparing a site survey.
Yeah, you can just go through them, pick and choose the ones that make sense, right? Especially in your case, Francois, where you're like going to a warehouse and you should ask the question, do I have to take any training on site? And how long will that training be? I mean, if it's 10 minutes or 2 hours is a pretty long training, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was the longest one. Usually it's something on the computer when you do click, 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 and they tell you what to do when there is a fire alarm. But this one, we had a full-on instructor, and they had to schedule it. So my work was scheduled around the training, which is usually the other way around. Wow. So that was interesting experience.
Right, so the course itself, like who is it for? Who did we cater this course to, Francois?
So for anyone doing a site survey, so it could be a Wi-Fi engineer, a network engineer, even maybe a cabler that does Wi-Fi site survey sometimes, I think it would be valuable for them as well. So anyone that actually goes on site and do the site survey, so they can have a lot of information on how to do it efficiently.
Yeah, and I think the reason why we did want to create this course is to help others be more efficient in how they perform these site surveys, because you can get lost in, not lost, but you could get yourself in
easily
a situation.
Forget something.
Right. Yeah. Like and that's happened to all of us. It happens to me all the time, because I always try to memorize things, and I just don't. I haven't acknowledged that my memory is not that good. So I should actually just use checklists and start preparing the day before, right? That's the kind of stuff that you have to do. And then you need to know like what kind of information to collect that will be valuable for the report or for any information that you need to hand off to the client. So there's a lot of different reasons why we created this. Also sharing some of the tips and the tools that we use. There are a lot of tools that go into a site survey, a lot of them that are specific to different scenarios, but knowing which tools that you need to bring with you is good, right? Because in my at home where I have all my equipment, I could have it all stashed in the same place in the same cabinet, which means I have to go dig around and look, right? I don't have enough space to keep it all nice and neat where, one section's like, all right, here's all the warehouse related stuff. Here's all the open office related stuff. And so that's why the checklist I think is good and putting it together as well, right? So we show you putting all these different tools together in order to make it maybe easy for you if you haven't done it before, or maybe you're trying to find a different way to do it. Maybe the tools you're using aren't working the way you think it should. We help with that.
Yeah, and the course we created is complementary to, like the vendor courses, right? Or even the CWNP training, right? So CWNP would teach you about the theory of how Wi-Fi works, which is still very important to know when you do a site survey. But I guess that's part of the training of a Wi-Fi engineer. And then you also have vendor training from Cisco Aruba. They don't talk much about site survey. But now if you do the vendor training from the site survey software company, so Ekahau, iBwave, and so on, then you're going to learn a lot more about site survey. You still learn about the theory, how everything works, and how you could apply that to site survey and how to do designer planning and so on. In our course, we wanted that to be complementary to those trainings. So that's why we wanted to focus more on the practical aspect of it. And that's, I guess, the reason why we called it a practical guide. So we what we wanted to do is provide a set of tools and information you could apply right away to your work, help you to, organize your work, help you to, give you processes and methodology on how you could do your site survey, as things you could apply right away and things that will speak to a Wi-Fi engineer, right? Yeah. So that's kind of
because you could be a managed service provider. You may not have the Wi-Fi expertise, but you may not have budgeted for a Wi-Fi professional to actually go out and do it for you. So you could actually take this course, get the equipment that you need, and maybe they do have the site survey software. I've seen MSPs who have site survey software, but they just don't do the site survey properly, right? They don't validate things to how it would be installed, right? Especially if you're doing AP on a stick, they might be using the wrong AP, or they might not be using the right mounts. So maybe they might be validating something at an 8-foot level, but what does it look like when it needs to be mounted in the real environment at 30 feet, right? So there's that, and then we can go into much more. Actually, should I share the modules that we have in there, Francois?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So Francois can't see this, but I'm sharing my screen, and we have different modules here, 5 different modules. And this is what it looks like when you are enrolled in the course. It's all video based. It's all at your own pace. So you can watch this whenever you want. You could use your computer, you could use your mobile device, but we start off with 5 different modules in this practical guide to Wi-Fi site surveys. So module 1, we talk, Francois goes into the definitions of Wi-Fi site surveys. That's for those who may not know the difference between the different site surveys.
Yeah, so, and also different terms are used, and sometimes we get confused into what means what. Yeah. So I guess we go back to the basics and talk about what it means. And then we'll also introduce a different type of site survey that we'll be covering during the course.
Yeah, so
and here we focus on, because we focus on on-site work, we're only talking about site survey. We're not talking about planning, design, predictive, simulation. You use whatever you want. We're only focusing on site survey and the work you do on site.
Yep. So that's the first module. Then the second module, different lessons here that talk about the preparation, the prep work that goes into it. So there's the practical aspects to it, the communications that you should have between you and whoever you're going to meet on site. to do the survey, the technical parts of the validation, and also the AP on a stick. And then along the way, you'll see that we add bonuses. Some of the modules have its own bonus section, but within some of the lessons, there's also a lot of other bonuses, things that we use, documents that we use, email templates that we use. There's a lot of different bonuses here. Do you want to add anything else to Module 2 site survey preparation work, Francois?
I think the second module is the longest of any modules, just to show you how important it is, I guess.
Yeah, it's pretty important.
That's it.
Prep is the biggest part, right?
Yeah, exactly. So nothing to add here. Just I guess what we can do after showing the module, we can show the list of bonuses.
Yeah, sounds good.
That's good.
Right.
Module 3 is talking about the equipment, right? So when you do a site survey, obviously a lot of equipment is involved, software, hardware. So you go over all of this. And at the end, you have a little nice video where you put everything together. I really like this video. So it's cool.
I bust out my equipment. I actually still have the case here with all of it next to me. So I take the equipment, put it together for you guys, talk about the different components so you can see what it looks like and you're not trying to figure it out on site.
And module 4, we talk about the on-site work. So how do you optimize everything we do on site? We talk about the different workflows, and we define workflows for different type of site surveys. So if you do a validation, troubleshooting, AP on a stick, then we give a couple of survey tips, practical tips of things you could do on site to optimize your work. We also talk about how we handle the different files, the different survey files, and all of that. And we give bonuses as well. Here in this module. And then the last module, we'll talk about reporting. So it's not like a reporting. We talk about what's important when you do a report and what we do on our end, what tools you could use to optimize, or I would say automate most of the reporting you do, so to save some time, but still having a professional looking end result, right? So we talk about that in the reporting module. At the end. So that's how we finish. I guess we finish and close the guide.
Yep. So 5 modules, lots of different lessons within each module. I think it's over like 5 hours worth of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's 5.5, something like that. Oh, that's not including the demo, because we do have some demo videos where we demo some stuff, some tools, and that's on top of the 5.5 hours, I believe. So maybe 6 hours overall of video content.
Yeah, it's really good content, I think, and something that I wish I had when I started doing site surveys.
Yeah, and then so if we talk about the bonus that we prepared, so I don't know if you can show that on the screen.
Yeah, I have it up on the screen here if they want to see it, but we can talk about the bonuses.
So the first one is we talked about that, but the list of questions to ask to your customers. And we have, I don't know how many questions we have, but we have over 30, I want to say. We have a lot.
You don't have to ask all of them.
Yeah, you don't have to ask all of them. You can pick and choose, but we try to think about everything we could to consolidate in that document. So I think this document is very valuable. Then we have the checklist of survey equipment. This one I think is very valuable as well. Just as Royal was showing, it just helps you to get your equipment ready. It also helps you to know which equipment to bring on site. So we try to think about everything you would bring on site. Then we developed a couple of scripts for you guys to just use Python scripts that you could use. One is to export AP radio configuration. So that's something you would do more when you prepare your site survey to know how the APs are configured. So we did that for Mist. And we included it. So it pretty much generates Excel document that gives you a table of how each AP is configured. You'll see. Then we have a script to configure an AP for an AP on a stick site survey, again with Mist. Then we provide the site survey folder structure that we use for different type of surveys. So we'll provide that with you so you can actually take it and then copy paste it for a new survey and start reusing it.
I would say
we also created
just sorry to interrupt you there, Francois, but I would say the site survey folder structures is probably one of my favorite ones because it keeps you very organized when you're doing your site surveys, and it's a template you could use project to project, right? And it's not so you don't. I don't know if you guys were like me before this. Is you're just dumping everything in a single folder, and then you've got multiple iterations of things. You got your design files with your validation files. You've got floor plans in there. Like it's a mess, right? So this folder structure should make everything a lot more organized.
Yeah, I agree. And I used to be just like you, Ruel, and then I started to tell myself I need to do better. So this is perfect. And then we designed an ID card. So when you go on site and if you want to identify yourself. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. What I used to have nothing on me, and then a whole bunch of people will just look at me and ask me, "Can I help you?" Yeah. Which means, "What the heck are you doing here?" So now I have this ID card, and I'll show you. But so we created this design that we shared with the students, and you can create your own. As you can see, I have two versions. I have one version for Symfeo, and then I have a version for Clear2Send. And you can. So we share the template, so students will be able to create their own. And I have a little demo video that shows you how.
Yeah, it's a really nice ID card, and
so I still have it.
It's good to wear that on you just so people can see that I guess the ID card, a lanyard and all that makes you official. Like you're allowed to be there.
Exactly. Looks like the FBI. Show me your ID. And then we have a script to extract AP images from Ekahau. This one is already public, but we have added it here to the course. And then we developed a couple of Ekahau templates for the report. So we did one for validation, and we did one that just exports an image with the AP locations as a PDF file. Sometimes customers ask that. So we have all of these bonuses that we provided. And I think they bring a lot of value to the course because, the course being a practical guide, these are practical things that you can actually apply to your work right away.
Yeah, and we could always add more bonuses too. I mean, it's not a course that we're just going to set and forget. I mean, as things change, we could update it. We could add other bonuses just for us as a way to provide value to everyone who gets the course. And especially if you do sign up for the course, you get added to a private Slack channel on the Clear2Send channel on the Clear2Send Slack, where you could interact with me and Francois on these site surveys or the course itself, and as well with any other students who are going through the same course. And it's a great way to collaborate with others and see how they're also doing their surveys. Maybe there's a question that somebody wants to ask, or an improvement that somebody was able to figure out when they're doing AP on a stick, for example. So there's a lot of different aspects to it, but the Slack is where we try to create that interaction, since we're not going to be able to do this face to face, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that was very important for us, is how do we make it interactive with the students? How do we bring a different experience for the students? And we came up with this idea of, having a private Slack channels that would be accessible only for the enrolled students and us, I guess. So students will be able to ask us questions, interact with us, and maybe we can get, other ideas to add to the course from that Slack channel. And we're hoping that students will embrace it and engage, and maybe if they go do a site survey and they use our tools, they can take pictures and share it with the other students. Or we hope for this Slack channels to be used and interactive with the students.
Yeah, indeed. So again, head over to courses.clear2send.net, where we have that one course listed, and we will have more courses, but right now we just wanted to focus on the first one and be able to put our attention to that and make sure we see it go through with people who sign up. And we hope that it's going to be pretty valuable for those who are just getting started with site surveys, trying to understand what they need to do, what type of equipment they need to have, and also along the process of, all right, reports, like what can I do besides the canned report? And so we kind of give you some templates that you can start working with that report and start playing around with how to structure your own report. And as you go, you'll start creating new versions of your report. Because I know I'm like on I don't know what version report I'm on now. I always figure out something to change.
Yeah. And here, listening to you talk, we should have called the course "How to Site Survey Like a Pro." Maybe we'll change the.
We'll change the name now. We're not. It's all done, Francois.
It's all done. All right. So we're super excited because it was a lot of work for us. But it was very, very nice for us to work on this. Oh, well, it's so easy to work with. It was nice for me. So we hope you like it. You can go and check it out, courses.cleartosend.net. For this episode, we will also have the show notes. So if you go to cleartosend.net/227, you'll be able to see a little bit more information as well. And we also have a video format for this episode if you want to actually take a look at what the curriculum will look like. So thank you guys for listening. I hope you are as excited as us about this course, and I hope you'll enjoy it. And then in the meantime, we'll just continue other podcasts every week, and we'll see you guys next week for the next episode. Enjoy the week.
All right, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.